Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode 2 of this diplomacy series, where I, as Austria, will be attempting to dominate Europe, perhaps alongside a handful of my allies. Well, you saw how well 1901 went for me. Pretty good turn all around. So in 1902, 1903, you'll see that I decided that basically the writing was on the wall for Russia, as I think he came to realize himself pretty quickly. And I came to realize that in order for me to continue to build on my success, I would need to keep doing so at the expense of uh, new people, of new victims, you might say. So in 1902, you will see me further this strategy by committing a smaller betrayal of someone I was technically allied with, I guess. And then in 1903, a bigger betrayal of someone I was definitely allied with. So let's get right into it. Okay, before we get into spring of 1902, I want to go back and include a little bit of context that I should have thrown in last time but sort of forgot about, specifically as it pertains to the Drew, Josh, Germany, Russia, that is, situation, in particular with regards to Sweden and the bounce that happened there in the fall. So I have a couple of screenshots here. First, I want to show um, this, where he said that he's 100% against Russia and just playing friends for the time being. So I think I may have made it seem a little bit more like I had a role in turning Drew against Josh, but the reality seems to be that he was actually against Josh the entire time, and maybe I just made him betray Josh a little bit more quickly, if anything. Also, I think this is important to highlight just because this is the moment when I knew that I was going to be okay vis-a-vis Russia, however things played out in the fall. Because if Germany is 100% against Russia, that means I'm pretty much going to be okay. Now, continuing to after the processing of the fall turn, Drew sent me this with the caption, "This is the this is the diplomacy screenshot ever," which I agree. This is one of the diplomacy moments of all time. Um, Pretty good. So well, not for Josh. I don't imagine that he finds this very funny, but I thought I would throw it in there all the same. So heading into spring of '02, my objectives are Warsaw, which I had already decided on even uh, before this year. I wanted to go for, and then I also decided that if we're going after Italy, Cameron can take Naples, Rome, Tunis, but I should at least take Venice since it's right there. It's right next to me. But first, I'll talk about Warsaw. So first of all my moves succeed this turn, which is great. Um, I play a little bit conservatively and just move to Galicia with support from Romania. When in hindsight, I could have taken Ukraine and Galicia this turn, but I think what I did makes sense. Um, Josh retreats his Ukraine army to Warsaw, and at this point, really the race for Warsaw is on because Josh moves there, locking it down. But then I'm moving towards it. Drew is moving towards it, and even Italy is moving towards Warsaw at this very moment. Drew, for his part, moves east with everything. Every single one of his units, he moves in easternly direction. Meanwhile, uh, I'm still very much allies with Germany, so I let him know that I'm planning to go for Venice. Um, and I ask if he can support me to Tyrolia, which he declines to do, but he says that he will not tell Josh what I'm planning. And I think that he was honest about this. It's a little bit confusing what Josh does here, what Italy Josh does here, because clearly he does not trust me. Because at least I don't think, because he supports Venice to hold, which would sort of suggest that he knows I'm going for Venice. But then I wasn't in a position to take Venice, even without him holding, so I'm not really sure what that was about. But then he continues to move up towards Warsaw as well. He doesn't double back with the unit in Bohemia and try to use it against me. And then with his fleet in Tunis, he moves to the Tyrrhenian Sea, which allows me to take the Ionian Sea. So that's not very good for him either. Meanwhile, over in the western part of the map, unfortunately, because convoys are a little bit complicated. They're confusing for people. I get that. That's just sort of inevitable. But yeah, she bungles her convoy order.
which means that she doesn't take Norway, and then also Alex forces her out of the channel. Okay, so fall of 1902. I reach out to Alex because he's someone I've had good relations with this game. Not sure if we've exactly been allies because we haven't been in a position to help one another for the most part, but we've had good relations. I reach out to him and I ask if he can move to Piedmont with Marseille. And he agrees to this, and that was a huge help to me because by moving to Piedmont, he cut support to Venice, and I'm able to move Tyrolia to Venice and take the center. So that's a seventh center for me, which I could not have done without Alex's help. So that was great. Um, Meanwhile, I take Ukraine over in the east, so just advancing my units forwards, sort of piecemeal. Um, me and Cameron did a little reverse Lepanto sort of tactic over here. Which, if you don't know, Lepanto is the name of a strategy in which, at the start of the game, in fact, in fall 1902, um, Italy and Austria end up positioning their units so that there is a Italian army in Tunis, an Italian navy in the Eastern Mediterranean, and an Austrian navy in the Ionian, and then Austria helps Italy to convoy their army from Tunis to Syria, and that causes huge issues for Turkey and can really be like a Turkey killer, which is why Austria may want to facilitate that. Anyways, all that is to say, we do sort of a reverse of that, where instead of Austria helping Italy to kill Turkey, I'm helping Turkey to kill Italy, but again with that same fleet in Ionian. So um, I attempt to convoy his army in Bulgaria to Naples, also using his fleet in the Aegean. I do this because I want to help Cameron out, but also I I would really like to get that army in Bulgaria out of there and put it somewhere where it couldn't easily take one of my provinces. So I see it as kind of a win-win. Unfortunately, we gambled. We sent it straight to Naples, and we lost because Josh also went Naples, so it bounced. It was worth a shot though, and you'll see in the coming season we get it right. So another interesting thing that happens this season is that Drew, because you remember Drew knew that I was going to Tyrolia, and didn't try to stop me or anything. But clearly he doesn't fully trust me because he moves to Munich with support. So I think, that's interesting. Also, Drew tries to take Warsaw with support from Josh's uh, army in Silesia. However, Josh Perry just does a support hold, so that doesn't work. And finally, Drew, who at this point could have kept Natalie out of Norway if he wanted to, actually does the opposite, supports her convoy to Norway. So that was nice. He gave so Natalie is finally able to get a fourth supply center.
So it's at this point, after the turn of fall 1902 adjudicates, uh, late that night, I get a message from Alex mentioning that he's been fighting the temptation to take Holland, which I find very interesting uh, because, he's had that army just sitting in Belgium not doing anything. So I don't do anything with this information immediately. I don't encourage him to take Holland, even though I kind of wanted to. Um, but I make a mental note that I could perhaps work with later that Alex is not 100% committed to his alliance with Drew. And it sort of seems like both of them are in strictly an alliance of convenience because they're not really helping one another. They're focusing on different areas. Drew's orientation is completely eastward facing against Russia, whereas Alex's orientation is westward facing, trying to invade Britain. So there's really no overlap there. They've just agreed to not attack one another. It's more of a truce than a real alliance. And Drew even said something to that effect earlier, back in 1901. Yeah, it starts to make me think, maybe if I go about it correctly, I could get Alex to go after Germany and help me eliminate him from the game. All right, so now we are in winter of 1902. I get another army in Budapest, the one place I can build it, so that's great. And at this point, I am starting to feel very powerful because now I have six. Okay, I have seven centers, where Alex and Drew both have six, so I'm not like in a huge lead in that respect. But I have six armies when they each have four, so I have 50% more armies on the mainland of Europe
than any other single player. So I'm starting to feel pretty damn confident in myself, which will lead to me, as you can see, as you will see, picking Germany as my next target. Um, so I get another army. That's great. You can see I just have this huge line of armies cutting sort of diagonally slash horizontally from Venice up to Ukraine. Um, so Josh has to do a disband because I took Venice. So he deletes his Silesia army, or his silly army, as I might call it, because he decides it's more important to defend his homeland. Meanwhile, Drew builds an army in Berlin, and this also contributes to me starting to see him as the new like enemy, despite the fact that up until this point we've been quite friendly, and I don't feel good necessarily about betraying him. But you put down another army, what's that army going to be used for? The way I see it, that can only be used against me in the long run, or in the medium run even. So I'm not a big fan of that. And that is another thing that leads to me deciding to go after him in the coming spring. Though let me not get too ahead of myself. Um, so also something quite interesting happens in the West, which is that Alex and Natalie, France and England, both get a build. However, Natalie builds a fleet as she should in Liverpool, but Alex builds an army in Brest. So and this wouldn't really become apparent to me until a little bit later, but I think in hindsight you can see even here that there's essentially a stalemate going on because Natalie has more fleets than Alex, which means that he's never going to be able to take a foothold in Britain unless she does something dumb, just because she has more fleets than him now. But also because he has all these armies on the mainland, she won't be able to take one of his centers either because the armies can be used to defend them. So um, you're seeing a complete stalemate in this war between France and England now. Sorry, Alex, that was not a very good choice. I'm sure you realize that now, but that is where we're at. Meanwhile, Turkey didn't get a build. Josh Perry actually didn't lose any more centers this year, so he doesn't have to make a destroy. Not that he's probably feeling too great about that.
So in spring of 1903, I decide to go after Drew, even though he had really only been friendly towards me through this part of the game. So bit of a dick move, I must say. But the way that I saw it is that my situation could only decline going forwards. This just really seemed like it would have to be the ideal time to attack because at this point, Tyrolia, Bohemia, and Silesia are all open. And if I wait, he's going to take Silesia, which just makes it harder for me to go after him in the future. Maybe he's even planning on moving to Tyrolia or Bohemia. Also, just if I didn't attack Drew this turn, I would have so many units just sitting doing nothing, which I just never think is a good idea in this game, really. So it really feels like it is time for me to go after him. So I take Tyrolia and Bohemia, and we bounce in Silesia. So I keep him out of there. So pretty successful overall, I must say. Um, Also, I decided to support Cameron into Moscow, which is successful. So very good there. And then we do our little reverse Lepanto, convoying Cameron to Apulia, and that works. So great. Looks like we're set up to take Naples in the coming year. And then something really great happens for me in Italy, which is that I moved to Tyrolia with support, um, which in hindsight was definitely overkill, but I was for some reason thinking that maybe Drew was going after me, so I did that. Um, and decided that I was just going to have to abandon Venice and maybe just lose it in 1903 and like retake it in 1904. However, something really amazing happens, which is that just as I decided that I need to give up on Venice, Josh came to the same conclusion, which makes a lot of sense because it looked like what I was probably going to do was just hold in Venice and do a support hold with Trieste. So Josh, despite having two armies bordering Venice, doesn't go with either of them. Instead, advances down the peninsula, which I can definitely understand why they did that. Um, Man, Josh must have been kicking himself after that. So sorry, Josh, but that worked out really well for me. So meanwhile, you have an interesting situation up north because you'll recall that Drew just supported Natalie's convoy of that army to Norway with his unit in Sweden. But now, having helped convoy that unit over, he immediately clashes with that same army in St. Petersburg, which they both go for and bounce. So looks like Drew is probably regretting that decision. And it looks like maybe the friendship between England and Germany is over. I really love how this plays out personally because Germany not getting that center, beautiful. So I love what Natalie's doing up there. Also, she moves North Sea to English Channel with support and is successful. So retakes the English Channel and quashes Alex's attempt to convoy the army over to Wales. Um, and this actually might be the first time I've seen a convoy defeated in this way, which was not that she moved to Wales to block the army from moving there, but actually dislodged the fleet that was trying to do the convoy, which is the other way of making a convoy fail. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So in the aftermath of this turn, I'm feeling quite good. But then Cameron starts sending me some messages which seem pretty shady to me. Like they talk about like temporarily taking Greece or like moving through it without taking it, which like I'm like, what? Why? And they're talking about going through Greece in order to get to the Adriatic Sea, and I'm like, what? Like, why would you go to the Adriatic Sea? Those are just like the Adriatic. That's just where my centers are. So, what would you want to? Why would you want to go there? So this like really raises my suspicion, because it just seems pretty sus. Like okay, what is their end game here? Um, in addition, Drew, as you might imagine, is not terribly happy about what I did in the spring, and starts messaging me saying basically. You're throwing the game to Turkey. And between that and Cameron's messages, I'm like, oh no, what if he's right? Because in our previous games, I believe we played 4 games, me and my friends. And in the first 3 of those games, Turkey won every time, soloed. So we have a pretty well established fear of Turkey in this game. And then last game was a 4-way draw, and Turkey was also a part of that. So Turkey has never really lost in this game. And I'm like, shit, if Turkey were to go against me right now, if Cameron went against me, I would be pretty damn exposed. So that really does have me worried. But then um, Cameron sends me some messages talking about strategy for next time. And I feel pretty reassured by that. And they regain my trust. I'm like, you know what? I don't think they're betraying me. So, false alarm, I guess. Uh, Now, last thing to mention, Josh retreats from Moscow to Livonia, which I hate because I'm, as usual, thinking of the worst case scenario. I'm like, oh no, Drew and Josh are both going to support Warsaw to hold and prevent me from taking it. Um, Nothing like that ended up happening, but that's what I was concerned with. Which I do think in this game you do want to think about the worst case scenario, but at the same time you don't want to let that totally dictate what you do. So that's just something you have to sort of balance whenever you play this. Okay, so fall of 1903 was another very good conclusion to a year for me and Cameron. Um, and I was pretty successful with all of my objectives for this season. So, first and foremost, with Cameron's support, I take Warsaw. I move Ukraine to Warsaw, and actually, all of the provinces around Warsaw happen to be covered in one way or another. So, the unit is just destroyed straight out. No retreat phase, no later deletion, just blown up in Warsaw. So that's a huge win. I get a bounce in Silesia, so keeping the German army out of there, that's great. Things are going well all along that front. I reoccupy Venice, which is very good. Josh doesn't make a play for it, so I have that secured. Our one significant failure this season was the attack on Naples, where I supported Cameron's recently convoyed army from Apulia to Naples. Josh moved his fleet in Tunis to the Ionian, which cut support from the army in Naples. So that was unsuccessful. However, Cameron, they did hold down Moscow, which is great. So Cameron also gets another build. I get a build. So we're looking good. Now, there's one thing down in Italy, which is interesting, which is that Alex takes the opportunity to move to Piedmont. Um, and I'm wondering what exactly he's got going on there. As of recording this, I've sent him a message asking what the plan is with that guy. Hopefully, not trying to ally with Italy to take Venice or something like that. We shall see. He has not responded to me yet, but I'm sure I'll have an update on that soon. So now let's turn our attention up north. Uh, so Drew, I guess sort of panicked after uh, my advance against him in the spring, he gives up on attacking St. Petersburg and he sends his fleet south to the Baltic, where it can, I guess, do support holds for his units there. So he gives up on St. Petersburg, but we get another bounce in St. Petersburg regardless, this time between Natalie and Josh Perry. So Russia trying to get back in there. Um,
England continuing to try to get in there, but just keeps bouncing. So um, no progress there. It kind of works out well for me, though. I'd sort of prefer that no one lock it down for the time being. Meanwhile, something interesting happened. Interesting development in the ongoing England-France war. So Natalie told me about this after the fact. So apparently Alex reached out to her, or they came to some sort of agreement that they were going to truce. That Alex would give up the Irish, would move out of the Irish Sea, and Natalie would move out of the English Channel, and that they would have peace between them. However, I guess Alex agreed to this truce without the intention of honoring it for even a turn, just purely in an attempt to get Natalie's guard down, and I guess break the stalemate, which I guess not a terrible idea. That had a decent chance of success. However, Natalie saved herself by, even though she thought that she had a truce, she still moved to Wales with London and blocked his convoy. So that really saved her. She would have been screwed, essentially, if she hadn't done that. It's funny how in diplomacy, just a single move can make such a big difference, because if Alex had gotten that army in Wales, that probably would have meant the end of England. At least I think there's a pretty high chance of that. So we talk about this. I give her some advice, or except it sounds like this is kind of what she was going to do regardless. She is going to try to wear Alex down, convince him that he cannot take Britain, because at this point, I mean, it's pretty true. Like, she has 3 fleets and he only has 2, so like she kind of has a beat there in terms of being able to defend herself. So she's going to try to wear Alex down and convince him to attack Drew instead, which is just great for me. I hope that strategy succeeds. And she also reached out to me after having watched my previous video on this channel of 1900 to 1901 in this game. And I might have to put up the screenshot for what she said, because it was kind of funny. But she says that she wants to be on the winning team and that we should be allies. And I'm like, great. That sounds fantastic. So my real end game goal here is kind of to try to get England and France to stop this silly war against one another and have them both go after Germany, because Germany is absolutely screwed if that happens. And with Germany out of the way, um, I don't know if we would end up doing a four-way draw or something else, but I would be in a very good position in this game. So we'll see. At the same time, I'm not totally sure where I stand with Alex. I don't know whether I can really think of him as an ally yet, especially with what he's got going on in Piedmont. That's it's a little dicey. But overall, very good turn. Can't complain, and feeling pretty confident in how this game's going to shake out for me. Winter of 1903 is not a huge turn because there's just 2 builds and 1 destroy. So I get another army in Budapest, which is nice, not super impactful. Cameron surprisingly builds an army in Ankara. Not exactly sure what their plan is there. And then Josh, with his dying breath, decides to use that opportunity to uh, mess with Cameron some more. And so he deletes his army in Livonia, which leaves St. Petersburg totally undefended, and leaves his fleet in Armenia, just to continue to preoccupy Cameron, basically. 1902 and 1903 were undeniably good years for me. I captured my 2 targets that I had at the beginning of 1902, Warsaw and Venice. I'm now up to 8 centers, and it seems like if I play my cards well, I should be able to defeat Drew. And beyond that, it's just a question of whether I embrace a 4-way draw with me, Cameron, Alex, and Natalie, or if I push on to some greater glory, perhaps a 2-way draw with me and Cameron, which is what I've been envisioning previously, or maybe even, if I'm really greedy, and backstab everyone, which probably means that everyone will hate me and not work with me and try to kill me in the next game. But if I really went for broke, maybe I could even solo. I don't know. Probably too early to be thinking about that, but I'm thinking it. So we'll see what happens. At the very least, I'm doing very well, and hopefully that continues. So thank you again for watching this episode 2 of my diplomacy series. This has been a lot of fun to make, and I'll see you next time.